that, but I still set very self-defined deadlines. So I've basically every day what I'll do just to keep myself in check is if my son is out in the couch in the living room, whatever he might be doing, I said, hey, 7:30 tonight, we're going to watch the finale of the Titan games, right? Because I know that if I don't do that, then I'm just going to keep working until 8, 9, 10 o'clock. But if I told him, I'm going to be out here at 7:30, you and I are going to watch TV together, then if I'm not out by 7:35, what's up? You said we were going to watch the show. I'm like, well, now I'm just being a bad dad.
Yeah.
So it's all about setting these external expectations and deadlines to keep yourself in check. So I pretty much work about a 12-hour day, but that 12-hour day also includes exercise. It includes an hour for lunch, sitting outside. It includes 2 walking breaks. But for me, when I turn the switch on in the morning, that's when I start exercising. It's usually about 7 a.m., give or take. And then around 7 or 7:30 is when I switch off and I'm done. And for the work that I'm doing and the condition that I'm in, that's been working really well for me for about the last 4 or 5 months. But you got to set realistic expectations and deadlines.
And with regards to, I'm putting you on the spot here. I didn't ask you to do this before we started, but I don't know. Do you have like a screenshot of a calendar that you could just screen share, for example, as an indication of how you break your day down? I don't know if you've got it. I just thought I'd ask.
I certainly, you should know me well enough by now to know that I, of course, have one.
Yeah.
So give me 1 second.
Just to give an example to people of how you kind of structure your day and manage it. And it's interesting.
Yes.
One of the things that whilst you're pulling it up, this is really interesting for me because it's something that I tried whilst, I have to admit, I tried, the time blocking whilst we were doing the OY, and I had a phase afterwards where it worked well, and then I kind of dropped away from it and then got it back again a bit, and mixed results. And then being back on a show where I'm not managing my time, so to speak. It's a lot, it's a lot harder to be doing this time blocking and organizing and just not being reactive person.
Exactly. Well, going back to something you said a little while ago, is you said when you get on a new show, it's all about, AvidBins and Nexus and this and that. It's all about media management, but nobody talks about time management. And I frankly think that time management is just as or even more important than bin organization and workflows. Because if everybody's not managing their time properly, that's why everybody's working the insane hours that they're working. So let me bring up a shared screen of what I call my ideal weekly calendar. So for anybody that's not a calendar person, they're just like, what is that? Oh my God, this is insanity. But what I've done is I've defined what the perfect week will look like for me. Every minute of every day is blocked out. This is not my real calendar. I want to make that very, very clear. This is an ideal calendar. But I want to ask myself, if I have the perfect week, what am I doing with my time? Where am I putting my attention? So it doesn't mean that I have work-life balance as far as an equal number of hours working as I do with family, but it means that I have work-life presence, which means that when I'm with my family, I'm with my family. When I'm working, I am working. So I know that give or take at 2 o'clock every day, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, I'm going to be in deep work mode, hyper-focused. My family knows not to bother me. We have all these signals and signs to communicate with them very clearly during these periods. Unless it's an emergency, I'm unavailable. But then other times, if I'm here with family or I'm checking in with them between blocks or wherever it is, it's the opposite. If a client wants me, if somebody I'm working with wants me, well, tough. I'm not available. I'm spending time with my kids. So this is an exercise that I know that I walked you through and I walk many of my students through, where it doesn't seem like from a technical perspective this would be that difficult. It's just a bunch of colored blocks. But when you're forced to do this, it brings up so many questions about the way you manage your time and the way that you manage your life. Mm-hmm. So it's not necessarily about the result. It's what are all of the questions that this forces me to ask myself about how I spend my time right now. Because the big thing that everybody always says, whether it's I want to get healthier or I want to learn a new skill or I want to, whatever it is, they all say the same thing. I would do it, but I can't find the time. Well, guess what? The time is right here. You don't have to find it. It's right in front of you. This is the one equalizer. Every single person on this call and every single person on this planet has the same 24 hours a day and 7 days a week. So it's a question of how do you prioritize it, because you're never going to find more of it. This is not going to happen. And if somebody does learn how to find more, please let me know, because I would love to use it.
Yeah, for sure.
But it's all about prioritizing it So this is a fundamental exercise that I force myself to go through anytime that my schedule is going to change, to ask, where do all of the most important priorities in my life belong on this? And if there isn't time on the calendar, well, then I'm kidding myself. It's not really a priority.
And then I suppose one of the other things you're getting quite good at is you working out how long things would take. Because one of the biggest issues I
Yes.
had with this was trying to estimate how long things would take to do to be able to block the time effectively in the first place, which to a certain extent you just have to do it and try it and see, and then feed back to yourself, right, about, oh, well, that took an hour longer than I thought it would.
Uh-huh.
Why did it
And
take an
time
hour
blocking
longer?
is what forces you to learn that, right? So what you measure, you can improve upon. So you can't say, well, I'm just going to kind of figure it out as I go. As you measure it on your calendar, you realize how grossly you're underestimating certain tasks, but you get better estimating how long it will take, but you have to measure it. And this is how I teach people to measure it.
Yeah, and I think I don't know, other people can comment in the chat or in the Q&A or whatever they want to do. I found this an incredibly hard mindset to shift into from being an assistant editor, because a lot of the job essentially is being reactive to someone walking in your room and saying, can you do this? And so I almost, I had subconsciously convinced myself to give up on doing this, or not even attempt it, as I was transitioning from 25 to 35, because I had just habit patterned myself into being someone who I had a list of things that I know need to get done, but I'm not going to take the time to schedule them onto a calendar, because the odds are that's just going to get thrown out the window immediately. But then the way that then impacts your personal life as well is quite profound, because you end up approaching life that way. Oh, I'm not going to book something to do on the weekend because your mind doesn't work. I mean, some people can obviously do it. I'm not talking for everyone here, but I'm sure there's a subset of people like me who've struggled greatly on the weekend to switch into scheduling time for the partner, or, exercise for
Right.
yourself or whatever. You're just recovering from fatigue and it takes time. But I just wanted people to see what it looks like from a well-practiced individual who has taken the time to do this.
And communication is a huge, huge part of this. So yes, as an editor, for the most part, I have pretty good freedom of my time, and I can choose how to use it as I see fit. As an assistant editor, it's a very different world, where people can knock on your door 78 times a day, and you're no longer an assistant editor, you're a firefighter. You're just putting out everybody else's fires, and you're in reaction mode, right?
Right.
But if you communicate with your team, and it's not about, hey, stop bothering me, but it's instead you going to an editor and saying, listen, if you ever need anything, you can always knock on my door, but here's what I'm trying to practice. I really want this block in the morning, just as an example, from 10 a.m. until 12:30 p.m. I really want to knock out my most important tasks of the day. Is it conducive to our workflow, just between the two of us, for you to not knock on my door or not reach out to me via Slack or whatever it might be if you're working from home, knowing that I'm getting the most important work done? And of course, if you need something and it's time sensitive, you bother me and it's fine. But you start to communicate about what you want your day to look like. And when you have a clear set of boundaries, it's actually way easier, even as an assistant, to be able to do these deep work sessions. But we always excuse it away, saying, I can never do that. People bother me all day long. Part of the reason people bother you all day long is you let them.
Right.
This is, again, we're saying no, but saying it in the nicest way possible and reframing it so they understand it's for their needs. It's going to be a lot easier for you to be able to create some of these blocks.
And that's where, like you said, the working relationship between the people in the cutting room are so important, because if from the top down, the approach is just one of, we're just open to helping everyone, everything, anytime, wherever, whatever you need, whenever it comes, whatever hour, pushing back against that is going to be difficult. If you
Exactly.
have enough people, it becomes more manageable. And that's obviously more possible on a feature film, I think, where the budgets are higher and you can have more people in the room. But the smaller the budget, the less that is enough. You could argue that there's less demands on a smaller film, but that's just generally not what I tend to hear from people.
Right.
In reality, it's like less money, more stuff just gets dumped onto fewer people. Because making a film is making a film. Dailies still need to go out, scenes still need to be assembled, edits still need to be posted, people still want things, reference, and so on and so on. And it's like, okay, we still gotta get it all done.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's really it's all about communicating and setting the proper expectations.
Let's just take a look at the Q&A. Eleanor, have you got any questions for Zach or anything you want to jump in on whilst I take a look at the Q&A?
I thought the ideal calendars are really great for anyone in the industry, whether you're an editor or a runner, to actually implement in your personal and professional life. Because when I made my ideal calendar, I, as you were saying, it was a great mindset shift into not being so reactive, and then actually realizing how much time I had in the day, and that I had less than I thought I had, but also that I was putting too much into one day. And it's a really great way, as you were saying, of actually prioritizing. So for anyone who is a post-production runner or a student on here, I definitely recommend it as well, for your personal life. And then, as you were saying, Ricardo, with actually time blocking it out, you can actually, what I've started doing is some tasks that I haven't known how long they were going to take until I've done them. And then once I've done them, I will write it in and I'll track it on my Google Calendar, so that the next time someone asks me to do something, I'm like, I know how long that takes. And it's actually really great, and it will actually help you in the cutting room as well. And when I was an edit trainee as well, I used that for when I was given a task like export this QuickTime or something like that. You can use it to actually tell your assistant how long you think you're going to take as well.
I think that's a really, really good point that I want to add to. So we'll use the export of a QuickTime as the perfect example. So if a post producer that doesn't really understand the tech side of things says, I need this QuickTime in 15 minutes, and you hit the export button and it says, will be finished in 57 minutes, well, you can say, I can't give it to you in 15. And they really don't have an argument. They're going to say, oh, all right, well, that sucks. I guess I'm going to have to reset my expectations, because I thought it would take you 15, but the computer tells me it's going to be 57 minutes. So I can't just tell you make it render faster. I have to reset my needs, knowing that that's the best you can do. Now imagine being able to do the same thing with a deadline. And I've done this before, where somebody has come in and they've said, listen, we need you to deliver the cut on this day. And I said, I can't deliver the cut on that day. Well, you have to. Let me show you my calendar. Let me walk you through how I blocked out all of the things that you've asked me to do. And I open up my calendar and it looks similar to that. And this is the reaction I get. Oh my God, you're right. All right, I'll move the deadline. But you have to have that skill to be able to do that. So the reason that I don't end up working these crazy late nights and weekends is because of my calendar. I show it to them and I said, this is what you're asking me to do today. So on Cobra Kai, for example, it's a show that's cross-boarded. And for those that don't know what that means, it means they're shooting multiple episodes at once. So it was a 10-episode season and they shot it in blocks. So 1 and 2 were simultaneous, 3 and 4 were simultaneous throughout the whole season. And I was on season 3 on episodes 1, 4, 7, and 10. And at one point, I had all 4 episodes open simultaneously. And they were saying, we need this by this day. I'm like, well, that's great, but what on my calendar needs to be removed? Because you also said you need this for episode for 1, for 4, and for 10. So how do you expect me to do this for 7? So instead of me just saying no, I say, I'm happy to meet that expectation. Tell me what it is that you no longer want me to meet, because there are only so many hours in the day. And once I can prove to them with my calendar how long something takes, they don't fight back. But what happens a lot, and I've heard this from post producers directly that have told me this, is they said, well, editors are just, they're so super sensitive and they just want their time to get it right and be creative, but I've got deadlines to meet. And I know that when an editor says they can't get it done, it really means they just want more time to be perfectionists, but I just need it finished. And I'm like, no, we actually don't have the time to do our jobs. But because a lot of editors, to be perfectly frank, are not very good at time management, they don't have the confidence to be able to say, no, it's going to take me this long to deliver. But if you show that you are good at time management, they can't fight back. So that's why the calendar is the secret weapon to being able to reset expectations and deadlines on any show. But you have to have the skills and the tools to be able to back it up.
Right, and you've got to be able to justify your argument.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's a key point. A quick question you might be able to answer here is that we've got H. Lee saying, I noticed deep work on your calendar. What is that, please?
Oh, I don't know if that's a quick one. I could go on this all night. The joke that I had said before we started is they're like, well, it's going to be about an hour and a half. Do you feel good about that? And I said, you take the string on the back of my shirt and you pull it and I will go all night. Yeah. And deep work is one of those concepts that I could literally talk about for hours.
Give us the cliff notes.
I was going to say that the Cliff's Notes version is listen to the episode that I do with the creator of the concept Deep Work. It's an author named Cal Newport. I don't remember the exact number. It's maybe episode 35, 40. Maybe you can do a search and you can send a link in the chat for everybody. But Deep Work is essentially this idea that when you're doing something, you're doing just that. So as creatives, especially with all the deadlines that we have, usually the way that works for most people, the default mode is I'm editing a scene, I'm watching shots, ding, ooh. All right, I'll just do this email real quick. All right, I'm back to editing. I'm going to watch a few more shots, get a couple cuts done. Ooh, text message. All right, well, let me check my text message, right? The brain is not able to multitask. We think we're good multitaskers. We're actually really good at switching from one individual task to the next, but that comes at a huge cost to, number one, our creativity, and number two, just our energy. That's why at the end of a day, even though we've just been sitting, we feel like we've been hit by a Mack truck. Like our brains just can't function because we make micro decisions all day long. And deep work is this idea of getting into a state of flow, or as people talk about it a lot, getting in the zone. So the blocks that I have that say deep work, that means for 90 minutes, I'm doing one thing. I'm either editing a scene, or I'm writing an article, or I'm writing a lesson for the course, or I'm building a web page. But I give myself one job. For 90 minutes, this is what I'm doing. I'm not checking email, I'm not checking Slack, I'm not doing anything else until this task is complete. And you find that within about 20 minutes, you get into the state where time just kind of disappears.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you say, oh my God, it's been 90 minutes? That's not even possible. But that's what's happening in the brain where time becomes very relative. And that is the number one secret weapon as a creative professional, is if you can learn how to do deep work, you're going to get stuff done so much faster. Yep. So like I said, I have a ton of resources about that. I even have a 4-part masterclass that teaches how to get into a state of deep work that's totally free. And I can provide a link to people if they're interested in going through that masterclass. But this is an area that I'm very, very passionate about.
Yeah, the deep work is... If you'd asked me a number of years ago, I would have scoffed at the concept because I considered how good I was at multitasking on the films I worked on, and how Eddie would walk in and give me a thing that needed to be done, and then the post supervisor would walk in, and I used Things, which is this really good piece of to-do list software by a German company called Culture Code, and I would always log it immediately in the software, in the project, in the very structured system that I had, and nothing ever got missed. But there was always then the follow-up of the 5 people coming in and asking me how the things were going, and I would be jumping back and forth between the two, and my brain was all over the place. I got really good at doing that. Ironically though, that doesn't make you a good editor, because you need to do the opposite to be an editor. So I find it ironic and slightly frustrating that the jobs we do as assistants actually in some ways are training us to, or the environments we work in as assistants, because of all the things we've touched on tonight, they are almost training your brain to not be a good editor, because you get into the habit of flitting back from one thing to the other, because there's so many departments that need things from you. Even if you're a good delegator, you still got to jump to delegate, to go back to the thing, to track the next job, to delegate that to the other person. Oh, the VFX has come in. Did the VFX person get it? And so on and so on and so on. And it really clicked for me when I was doing some short film editing last summer in the sabbatical that I took, and I worked so hard to implement what you were talking about, and turning on Do Not Disturb mode, it was put the phone upside down in Do Not Disturb mode, but it was still on the desk. Then the phone went off the desk. Then the phone went into the cupboard, because it wasn't until I tried to be an editor properly on a short film, having not done it for a while, since 2012, I realized, Christ, days are going by and I'm not getting stuff done, because I'm probably only working for 45 to 60 minutes at most, if I'm lucky, because of what had happened. And so it's a critical skill, I think, to be able to have it. And the top editors do it. You do it. Eddie does it. Lee Smith on X-Men, he came in the morning, the door was, he said hello, got his coffee, and then the door to his room was shut. And I saw him twice the rest of the day. Once at lunch to say hello and have lunch, and once when he walked past the room to say goodbye in the evening, and didn't see him again. His door never opened, and Adam, the first, dealt with everything. Lee never got interrupted, and I was too young at the time, I think, to really appreciate what I was seeing, but I remembered it, and he was deep working.
Well, and at the end of the day, at least as editors, what's the reason that we get paid to do what we do? We get paid for our ideas. I can't generate ideas if you're knocking on my door every 5 minutes and you're pinging me on Slack and you're sending me emails. So yeah, you want to treat me like an artist, but frankly, you're managing my time like I'm your accountant, and I'm always at your beck and call, which is counterintuitive to the whole reason you're giving me money. You want me to generate ideas, make decisions, and create stories. I can't do that if I'm bothered all day long. So that's another expectation that I set with people. I will say to my producers, my other assistant editors, even showrunners, you want me to do my job well, you got to let me do my job. So I even have a do not disturb sign that I hang on my doorknob, just like I were at a hotel, where people know if it says do not disturb, unless it's time sensitive, do not bother me until I come out. But because of that, I'm out the door by 7:30 or 8 o'clock at the latest every single night. And if we go back to this idea that you were talking about, I'm so amazing at multitasking and I've got things and I'm doing this and that for the visual effects producer and my editor and the post producer, how well did all that work out for you when you went home at the end of the night or on the weekends?
It didn't work out that well.
Didn't work out so well, did it? So that you have to look at the full price that you're paying, where in the moment it might work, but then you're completely destroyed because your brain can't handle that speed. We just haven't evolved to be able to manage the speed of technology and communication the way that it is today. So for me, I'm only successful in the way that I work if at the end of the day, I'm still a human being. If I'm not, I'm doing something wrong and I need to fix it. And sure, there are always days where it's 8:30 at night. I'm like, oh man, what a day.